Welcome to The Art of Making, EIT Manufacturing's podcast where we talk to leading entrepreneurs, technologists, researchers and policymakers about the state and future of the European manufacturing industry. I am your host, Maxime Montmorency, and this is The Art of Making. In the middle of the Tyrolean mountains, we had a very interesting conversation with Dr. Sarah Theinert. She's a director of partnerships and value creation at UVC Partners, and we discussed how investors and well-networked organizations can support their portfolio startups with well-executed business development.
Sarah, thank you so much for finding some time here during the Skinnovation conference or fair. I heard this is your first time recording a podcast, and the first time that you're doing this is in a ski gondola. That must be an experience. I will try to focus on our conversation and not look outside too much to the beautiful Tyrolean mountains. We'll make it. Sorry, we briefly discussed last week in the preparation of our talk here today difficulties of B2B sales for industrial tech startups. This is one of the things that our startups tell us almost every single time that they come to us. We can have, or it's no problem generating leads. We have some startups that actually work with call centers and that kind of stuff. Qualified leads is a bit more difficult, but the conversion, that's the most difficult part. Now, how do you help your startups with that?
Sure thing. First and foremost, thanks that I am able to join here. And in case there are some awkward silences, it's because that I'm enjoying the view during our podcast. So yeah, first time in a gondola. So definitely an experience.
Could be worse.
Indeed. I do like the questions and also your thoughts because qualifying leads generation for our deep tech startups is a tricky one. However, at least from my perspective, that's only the beginning. It's one of the very first challenges because, as you just said, it's more a conversion topic that's moving the needle by generating revenue in the end. What we do and how we approach things is the following. And by we I mean UVC Partners, we have a dedicated value creation team that I'm running. And our main task, apart from generating leads for our portfolio companies which are qualified, we also support them then, once they are in their pipeline, in supporting finding an approach that suits the startup, but also the dedicated corporate, because we are in the end talking about deep tech or industrial startups, which are usually B2B sales. And it doesn't work like in a fintech that you have one approach fitting for, millions of customers. It's rather big ticket sizes with respect to leads. And therefore, each and every approach when a startup approaches a corporate or potential customer needs to be very customized.
Yeah.
And in that setup, what we do is we support them by finding their unique approach. For instance, if you are a startup that helps with the technology, with their industrial tech solution to, for instance, optimize bottom line for a corporate or for any sort of company. In that particular case, it is way more useful if that startup uses, for instance, a CFO contact, because it then can approach the potential business unit, but it also can tell their story in a way better way, where it also fits then the purpose. If it's a company that helps you to producing new innovative solutions, so we are talking more about revenue, growth for a potential corporate, then it might be a different channel. Yeah. And what we do is we help our startups in assessing the way forward. And if they struggle because it takes them too long or sales cycles are off limits, we then also help by trying to talk ourselves to corporate if it makes sense, but always jointly with the startup, because this is, from my perspective, what is the most important thing, doing joint work.
Yeah. Well, in the end, it's if it's successful, it's a triple win story, right?
Yeah.
It's a win for for the startup, of course, to generate sales, which is difficult to do in itself, especially if you're a deep tech startup in an early stage, or if you're growing. For the corporates, if they're innovative enough and willing to talk to you and try out new things, the open innovation approach. But also for you, of course, because you invest and you want your invest portfolio to grow, obviously. There are a lot of things that come together there, right? So you have the startups in different types of stages. You need to find the right person to talk to within the corporates, right? It is also not the easiest thing to do, and it is also something that we're, I wouldn't say struggling with, but we have certain contact points within our organizations and the corporates, which are not always the right people to approach for this, of course. Now your title, I'll put it that way, is Director of Value Creation and Partnerships. So basically covering the value creation for the startups and the partnerships, the network. Now, what are the value propositions that you have? Why is it valuable for startups to, for example, work with UVC Partners, or work with ET Manufacturing, and other kinds of investors and organizations that have this kind of network? What can they get from that?
They can get a lot if they understand what they also want. So let me start with the following. The network can help, speaking about sales, for instance, to grow your sales pipeline, like we just said. It can also, however, helps you to shorten the time frame of a sales cycle. For instance, you just mentioned that it's always necessary to talk to the right person. And for me, one of my main tasks is to identify this right person. And for me, at UVC Partners, as a VC, it sometimes takes ages to find that dedicated right person, because there is no, I don't know, they are not yet all in my telephone book, but I'm working on that. But it's just super cumbersome. And you also need to find the right balance, because in the end, it's all about trust. So I need them to trust me. And how does my startups, my founders also benefit from that? Because I'm doing part of the work that they used to do. I'm not selling their product, but I'm at least helping them to have faster access to the relevant people. And I don't know how many people are now stopping to listen to the podcast, but I'm not talking about innovation managers at big corporates, which usually, sometimes it's different, do not have a budget for really paying some new technologies being set up in a corporate. I'm talking about those who really are working on looking for effects for business units. And those people you need to find. And this is, for instance, something my startups benefit from. I'm saving them time. I'm getting them access to leads. However, apart from that, it's not always about sales. We have some startups in our portfolio that are not ready yet to sell, because we also invest in pre-seed and seed. And there they are looking, for instance, for some partners they can develop their product even further, or who can they also assess product market fit. So it can help, especially in the early stages, founders to reassess, assess, do the first checks, and possibly even reiterate.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. We do a lot of or we try to connect startups with corporates that are willing to do proofs of concepts, for example. So really later than tech development, although we also try to support here, but really try to implement these technologies into your factory, the warehouse, wherever, whatever the technology is. And you're right. Yeah, there you have to find the right person who has, one, the decision-making power. That's one thing. And two, the budgets, which are also not necessarily the same people. So yeah, for all sides, there are challenges that need to be overcome. So you talked about, okay, you're assessing product market fits for the early stages, more into B2B sales and supports to get access to leads. So you're basically really covering more or less the entire, let's say, all of the stages of your startups. So basically you can support them from beginning until exit, right?
Yeah, I would say we can support them. Obviously, when it comes to our startups that are pre-IPO, I would say that my immediate value add is a little bit limited, and I can rather learn from them. But for sure, it's not. It doesn't work that way. That out of a sudden they are out of my sight, and then I don't support them anymore. Because then, obviously, when we're talking about our founders who maybe even have like a partly exit of their very own startup because new investors joined and they want to reinvest, for instance, in a community. Obviously, I have on top of my head that they become business angels in one point in time. So yeah, I'm trying to produce sort of a picture where it's like a circle, circle of life. The Lion King comes on top of that. Yeah. Hakuna Matata, yeah. Obviously, it gets a little bit less. Oh, we're stopping. Nice. Okay.
Now we can enjoy the view.
Yeah, I was about saying. But it obviously depends. My most value add that I can have or that I have is in the earlier stages, but also when there are Series C rounds, and for instance, one of our startups wants to get in touch with the C level of one of the corporates that I'm frequently being in exchange with, no matter of the reason, might be even to discuss potential M&A exits, right? I'm happy to support.
Okay.
There's no dead end.
So a bit more early stage, but
Yeah.
you can cover quite a bit of the life cycle, so to say, of a startup, of the circle of life. Exactly. I like that one. Now, okay, you have a huge network. So everyone who goes to the website of UVC Partners, or for that matter, to the website of EIT Manufacturing, will see a whole list of partners that are willing to support, maybe even invest time, money in these kind of new innovative technologies. In our discussion, and I would like to bring this up here because I thought it was extremely interesting, you mentioned that as UVC Partners, you have a deep network, your words, in Germany and the DACH region, which is, I guess, where you are primarily focused on. Whilst organizations like EIT Manufacturing and other EIT kicks in other technical domains have a broader network, Europe-wide. Maybe not the deepest one per se, but very broad.
Yeah.
Now, how do you think that organizations like UVC Partners, EIT Manufacturing could collaborate to kind of cover more of the spectrum?
Yeah. From my perspective, and if someone has a different experience, please reach out to me. I think you need to focus on the one or the other. And why is that? Because both bring startups an amazing immediate value add. For instance, in our case, our network is very deep in our areas where we invest or areas that are kind of alike. So let's use the example of one of our companies that are working on fusion. We have an expert network that includes from professors that did research in that area. We have also experts that also help how such plans needs to be developed and so on and so forth. So it's really huge domain expertise where we have access to. And this is great, especially in the beginning, because there a lot of decisions need to be taken that obviously have a long-term effect on the company. However, obviously, when a company is going to grow, and let's take, for instance, the software as a service company as a next example, then there comes adjacent business, adjacent markets, internationalization out of a sudden into play. And I talked about that with one of my mentors because I was also struggling what makes more sense to have either a deeper network or a broader one. And it doesn't matter because both serve different purposes, but both are very, very, very needed. And players like ours, EIT as well as UVC, we need to collaborate exactly there because you can't cover all and there's no need to. It's like the Porter's diamonds. You either focus on the one or the other. And collaborating, for instance, on certain startup industries where, let's put it that way, our startups are able to do the groundwork that works in the market, and then we reach out to you and saying, okay, now it's time to internationalize. How can we do it? How can we jointly join forces to support, that's extremely valuable because, to be honest, if one of my companies saying, hey, I don't know, export our business to Spain, I have some contacts there, but not those who would be needed exactly from the beginning. And the faster you are, especially with internationalization, the better your businesses are. And there, I think, is a lot of opportunity for collaboration.
Yeah, no, I agree. And this is, for example, where these EIT kicks, which includes EIT manufacturing, are focusing on, specializing on, is this access to European markets more broadly. So it is very important, and I think that you're completely right that we, for the startups, right, that we try to build this community, so to say, of support from all sides, organizations, investors, that then try to take a startup on a journey of growth together, right? So I think that you're completely right there. And well, after a podcast, we'll talk a bit more about how we can do that in other cases. Let's circle back a little bit to the start of why UVC Partners decided to actually do this kind of value creation, because obviously all VC or investment entities more broadly try to support their startups in some way, have contacts, can introduce. Very often that's not purely, but quite limited to due diligence. So what was the reason for UVC Partners to start this, and why are you doing this from a personal perspective?
It's an amazing question because let's start with the later one. So why did I decide for myself that this is something I want to work in? Because previously I was working for a different investor where just because of the one particular portfolio company, I was heavily involved in value creation activities. There it was called business development because there are a lot of names flying around. However, in the end, I realized due to a very nice exit how much good or well done business development can impact your exit multiple. And I decided that I don't want to do that only for one company, like it's basically in a private equity world or in a corporate venturing, but I want to do it for a whole portfolio, because I think you can not only leverage the value of one portfolio company if you support them, but you can also leverage value of portfolio companies if you combine them, if you connect them to really also find some synergies that are existing within a portfolio. And this was also something that UVC Partners realized over the history, being around now 12 years, and also part of the UnternehmerTUM ecosystem. I mean, our fund always did sort of value creation activities, but this was not with a dedicated function. It was especially, with the investment managers and the partners who were able to use and also to leverage the whole ecosystem that is around UVC Partners. And 2 years ago, our partners, and to be honest, I still think this was very innovative, and it's very innovative because, at least to my knowledge, we are the first B2B deep tech fund, not B2C, that's focusing on value creation as a dedicated function. And they decided to do that because there is way more possible to support our startups if they want, obviously, and help them, especially in sales, with introductions, and make their life more easy. And this was also my understanding, and still is my understanding, of value creation, that you can make a huge difference. And UVC saw by the limited activities they did back then that they already had an impact. And with me and my team, we are now accelerating that and using our ecosystem and our friends and our partners, because for us, it's not about the single company only. It's not about us as a fund. It's about the whole ecosystem that we want to support. And that's why we are also a part of European biggest ecosystem in entrepreneurship, UnternehmerTUM.
No, absolutely. I think it's always about ecosystems, especially if you want to scale and if you want to grow in a dedicated and controlled manner as well. Or let's call it goal-oriented. No controls.
That is true.
You mentioned finding these synergies between startups. find it's interesting because this is, we as an organization, we organize a lot of these kind of startup events, matchmaking, networking, pitching competitions, etc. And every single time we get the feedback that it's also extremely interesting to talk to the other startups to try and find out, look, are there synergies? Where can we do stuff together? Maybe we have the same development stack, etc. So perhaps this is another area for some people out there who have a good idea in a network to try and synergize these startups with each other.
Yeah.
Another way that I would like to get your opinion perhaps on this, but maybe the portfolio is not broad enough, I'm not sure. Another way that you could do this is bundle these startups with technologies that are complementary. And I see you laughing. That are complementary. And in manufacturing, this is actually, I won't say easy, but straightforward, in the sense that manufacturing industry, a plant has so many moving components that there are always places where you can improve and implement new technologies.
Yeah.
So this is also something that we try to do. We bundle these startups with advanced sensors, solutions for predictive maintenance, digital twins, IoT, etc., you name it, and reach out to corporations that might benefit from that. I'm not sure what your view is on that.
I was laughing, or I'm laughing, because we definitely need to talk afterwards, because that's what I'm currently developing, because this is so important on various dimensions, that VCs start thinking about how to bundle their portfolio companies. And this is not only to really assess and find, for instance, opportunities also to save cost, let's be honest.
Sure.
If my portfolio company has, I don't know, cloud costs of 800,000 euro a year, there's something that you can do. But apart from that, it's because you can also serve potential customers and clients of the portfolio companies better. Let me give you an example. We have a portfolio company that is doing carbon footprint accounting. And on top, we have a company that's doing engineering for CAD, programming, and also optimizing the whole process there. From a very, let's say, high-level perspective, I wouldn't see too many synergies. However, if you really pay attention and if you really talk to not only the portfolio companies, but also potential customers, there might be even a way that you can assess, for instance, differences that you do in the engineering process already, how they would affect your carbon footprint accounting then in the future. And this kind of ideas, they can only develop, for instance, when you bundle your portfolio or other portfolio companies of ours. And we realized that during a dinner that I organized, happy to tell a little bit more on that, they have complementary products, but they have the same customer base. So obviously what they do is they do now regular exchanges just to exchange, hey, do you have a contact here? Do you have a contact there? And I think there is so much more to leverage. And sadly, especially those areas went on top of the lists of VCs yet. But I'm very sure this is going to change.
Absolutely. You're probably trailblazing with UVC anyway. So
The both of us.
we try.
Yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And we had in the past, we don't only support startups, of course, we're a bit bigger than that. We have innovation projects that we fund, and we've had in the past that number of startups come together and work with a company, an end user, to really create this kind of product together, a solution that benefits someone in the industry. And you're right, I think there's a lot of value to be added there, a lot of synergies that people are just not aware of, that a lot of VC firms, investors, organizations like ours, if we're honest as well, don't really talk to each other because they see each other a bit as competition. And the same goes for portfolio companies in different investment funds.
Yeah.
But even then, I think there is some value to be added, especially if you can have a win-win situation for both startups and both funds.
Yeah.
As a last remark, so we have a couple, I hope a lot, listeners in to this podcast that are planning or already executing building a industrial tech startup. From your experiences in value creation, partnerships, what would you tell them to do? Early stage, growing stage.
Yeah. Early stage. Sometimes you do not have a product market fit yet. Ideally, find someone and don't make yourself too dependent on him or her, who is a business that could be a potential customer of yours, and try to convince them to do joint product development. Be careful of the terms though. Why? Why? Because you can, if you have access to someone like that, you can test your business and or your idea and see whether there's product market fit. If you then have realized this is the way forward, this is the story that you want to tell, those are the customers that you want to target. If you're more going into the growth stage, you can't be too professional from the early beginnings. What do I mean by that? If you, for instance, have right from the beginning a very, very sharp ICP, ideal customer profile, and it might also change over time, you can then assess and also make already lists whom you want to contact with respect to, for instance, sales, or who's a potential customer, and then start to build relationships with those potential customers as early on, because obviously there's not a lot of history around the dedicated product or service because it's just came around the corner, but you need them in the long term. And apart from that, I like what you just mentioned. Obviously, be careful when it comes to patents or secrets and so on and so forth. But in the end, our industry, especially when it comes to deep tech, is very open. And even potential competitors, in most of the cases, are giving new time founders advice. And being open-minded, talking to people who are in the industry, but also around the industry, and ask them also about mistakes they did so that you don't fall in the same fallacies again. This is something that I can only encourage. And one more thing, and this is the third, especially for deep tech founders or CTOs, I also need to convince some of mine to, for instance, attend some events. And I know time is precious, but sometimes it's very good to go outside and also to meet new people, because it gives you also fresh flavors on perspective, or also different ideas how you can approach things.
Learn from each other. Yeah.
Yes. And those are the 3 points that, from my perspective, are the most important things.
It's fantastic. 3 amazing tips as a wrap up. Sarah, thank you so much for this deep dive in value creation for deep tech, industrial tech startups. And if any industrial tech startup is interested in collaborating with
reach
you,
out.
reach out. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you. It was fun.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you're hearing, make sure to subscribe to The Art of Making on the podcast platform of your choice. We're more than happy to hear from you, so reach out through the EIT Manufacturing website, that is eitmanufacturing.eu, or find us on the usual social media channels. Take care and talk soon.